Keisha Williams had just transferred to a new school. She came from a place where survival meant learning to fight, where 8 years of mixed martial arts had turned her fists into weapons. She was a black belt wrapped in teenage silence. But the bullies didn't see that. They saw a quiet black girl, alone, an easy target. So they came at her with demands and threats, escalating the harassment every day. Then, one afternoon, they crossed a line. Laughter followed. Someone said she deserved it. The hallway watched, but Keisha didn't break. They thought she was weak. They thought she'd take it. They were wrong. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m., but Keisha Williams was already awake, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling of her new bedroom. Detroit felt like a lifetime away, though it had only been 3 days since the moving truck pulled away from their old house. She rolled out of bed and padded to the basement, where her mother had already set up the heavy bag in the corner. 40 minutes later, sweat dripped from her forehead as she finished her morning routine. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. The combinations flowed like breathing. 8 years of training had made the movements instinctive. But today, they felt different. Today, they felt necessary. "Keisha, breakfast!" her mother called from upstairs. Dr. Patricia Williams stood at the stove, still in her scrubs from the night shift at Millbrook General. "How are you feeling about today, baby?" "Fine." Keisha grabbed a piece of toast. "Just another school?" Her mother's eyes held concern. "I know this transition isn't easy. Millbrook is different from what we're used to." Different was an understatement. As Keisha walked through the front doors of Millbrook High, the sea of white faces confirmed what she already knew. Out of 800 students, she could count the black faces on 2 hands. The hallways buzzed with typical morning energy, but conversations seemed to pause as she passed. Whispers followed in her wake. She kept her head up, shoulders relaxed, the way Master Chen had taught her. Never show weakness, but never look for trouble. First period biology went smoothly enough. Second period history was tolerable. But lunch was where the real education began. The cafeteria stretched out like a social map. Popular kids claimed the center tables. Athletes dominated one corner. Theater kids clustered near the windows. Keisha grabbed a sandwich and looked for an empty spot. Well, well. Look what wandered in here. The voice carried across 3 tables. Derek Morrison stood 6'2" with the kind of confident swagger that came from never being challenged. His Letterman jacket hung perfectly on broad shoulders, and his smile never reached his cold blue eyes. Behind him, Jake Wilson cracked his knuckles, while Tommy Bradley snickered. The cafeteria fell quiet. All eyes turned toward the confrontation brewing in the center of the room. Keisha continued toward an empty table, but Derek stepped into her path. "I'm talking to you." His voice carried the casual authority of someone used to being obeyed. "We need to have a conversation." She stopped, meeting his gaze without flinching. "About what?" "About how things work around here." Derek's smile widened, showing too many teeth. "See, new students usually pay a little welcome fee. Call it insurance. Make sure nothing bad happens to them." Jake and Tommy flanked her sides, close enough that she could smell their cologne. The cafeteria remained dead silent, 200 students watching like it was dinner theater. "Insurance against what?" Keisha's voice stayed level, curious rather than confrontational. "Accidents," Derek shrugged. "Lockers getting jammed. Books going missing. People bumping into you in the halls. Funny how clumsy some folks can be around here. Especially the ones who don't belong," Tommy added with a nasty grin. Keisha set her lunch tray on the nearest table. When she turned back to Derek, her posture remained relaxed. But something had shifted in her eyes. "I don't pay protection money." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Derek's smile faltered for just a moment before returning full force. That's where you're wrong, girl. Everyone pays. Question is whether you pay easy or you pay hard. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried across the silent room. Unless you think you're too good for our little system here. Think you're better than the rest of us? I don't pay at all. She picked up her tray and walked around him toward the empty table. For a moment, Derek stood frozen, clearly not expecting outright refusal. The cafeteria waited. This isn't over, he called after her, loud enough for everyone to hear. Nobody disrespects me in my school. Nobody. Keisha sat down and unwrapped her sandwich, as if nothing had happened. But her peripheral vision tracked Derek's every movement as he stormed out with his crew in tow. At a table across the room, Marcus Thompson shook his head and muttered to his friend, "Girl has no idea what she just started." The conversations gradually resumed, but the energy had changed. Word would spread through the school before the lunch period ended. The new girl had just declared war on Derek Morrison. Keisha took a bite of her sandwich, chewing slowly. She'd hoped to get through at least one day without trouble. But some things were inevitable, and backing down from Bullies had never been an option. The real question wasn't whether Derek would retaliate. It was when and how far he'd be willing to go. The harassment started before second period ended. Keisha walked to her locker, keys in hand, but the lock wouldn't turn. She tried again, checking the combination she'd memorized that morning. Nothing. Having trouble? Jake Wilson appeared beside her, grinning. Locks can be tricky when they get damaged. She examined the mechanism. Someone had jammed gum into the keyhole. Real mature. Just the beginning, Jake said, walking away backward so he could watch her reaction. Derek's got a long memory. Third period American history dragged by without incident, but as Keisha gathered her books, she noticed her notebook was missing, the one with 3 days' worth of notes. She searched her bag twice before giving up. In the hallway, she spotted Tommy Bradley showing off the notebook to a group of freshmen, making exaggerated gestures as he read her handwriting aloud in a mocking voice. Look at this fancy penmanship. Must think she's real special. Keisha approached calmly. That's mine. Prove it. Tommy held it above his head like a playground bully. Maybe if you ask nice, I'll consider giving it back. She didn't ask. She didn't grab for it either. Instead, she pulled out her phone and snapped a photo of him holding it. What are you doing? Tommy's bravado wavered. Evidence. She slipped the phone back into her pocket. In case I need to file a theft report. Tommy's face reddened, but he threw the notebook at her feet before stalking away. The pages scattered across the hallway floor. As Keisha knelt to collect her notes, a pair of worn sneakers appeared in her line of sight. She looked up to see Marcus Thompson, the same student who'd commented at lunch. You need some advice, Marcus said quietly, glancing around to make sure they weren't overheard. I'm listening. Derek Morrison isn't just some rich kid playing tough. His dad owns half the businesses in town, including the car dealership where my mom works. His uncle's the police chief. When Derek wants something to happen, it happens. Keisha stood, clutching her retrieved notes. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to save you. Marcus's voice carried genuine concern. Last year, there was this kid, Miguel Santos. Transfer student like you. Derek decided Miguel was getting too friendly with some girl Derek liked. Miguel ended up with a broken nose and 3 cracked ribs. Fell down some stairs, according to the official report. And you believe that? I believe Miguel transferred schools 2 weeks later. Marcus leaned closer. Look, I get it. Standing up feels good. But Derek doesn't fight fair. And he doesn't fight alone. Whatever you're thinking about doing, don't. Before Keisha could respond, Marcus melted back into the crowd of students changing classes. The afternoon brought escalating harassment. Someone accidentally spilled chocolate milk on her backpack during lunch. In chemistry lab, her safety goggles went missing, forcing her to borrow a scratched pair that made it impossible to read measurements clearly. By sixth period, a pattern had emerged. Derek's crew took turns making her life difficult, always with plausible deniability, always with witnesses who saw accidents, not harassment. But seventh period pushed things too far. Keisha sat in English class, trying to focus on the discussion of To Kill a Mockingbird, when Derek raised his hand. "Mrs. Patterson, I think we should hear from our newest student about this book. I bet she has some real insights into the themes." "Mrs." Patterson smiled encouragingly. "Keisha, would you like to share your thoughts on Harper Lee's portrayal of racial injustice?" The setup was obvious, but Keisha responded thoughtfully, discussing the book's exploration of prejudice and moral courage. She spoke for 2 minutes, articulating her points clearly and intelligently. When she finished, Derek started slow clapping. "Wow, that was so well spoken. You're really articulate for—" He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "I mean, it's nice to hear someone who can express themselves so clearly." The classroom fell silent. Mrs. Patterson's face flushed, but she seemed frozen, unsure how to address the obvious racial undertone without making things worse. "Thank you," Keisha said evenly. "I appreciate you noticing my ability to communicate effectively." Derek's smile faltered slightly at her calm response, but he pressed forward. "It's just refreshing, you know. Sometimes people from certain backgrounds struggle with academic discussions." The silence grew heavier. A few students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "I'm sure you'll find that people from all backgrounds can surprise you," Keisha replied, her voice steady as steel. When the bell rang, she gathered her books without hurry, walking out with her head high. But inside, something had crystallized. The games were over. Derek had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. In the hallway, she could hear Derek laughing with his friends, probably congratulating himself on his clever performance. He had no idea what he'd just unleashed. Friday morning started with Keisha finding her locker decorated. Someone had taped a banana to the metal door with a note that read, "Welcome to the jungle," in Derek's distinctive handwriting. She removed it without expression, aware of the students gathering to watch her reaction. Some looked ashamed, others snickered. Keisha crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash, but she kept the tape as evidence. "Oh, did you not like your present?" Derek appeared with his usual entourage, speaking loud enough for the growing crowd to hear. "I thought you might be homesick for the urban wildlife." "Creative," Keisha said, closing her locker with deliberate calm. "But you might want to work on your penmanship. Makes it easy to identify the source." Derek's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to his targets talking back, especially not in front of an audience. "Maybe you need a lesson in respect. Maybe you need a lesson in basic human decency." The hallway buzzed with whispered reactions. Students pulled out phones, sensing something bigger brewing. Throughout the morning, the harassment intensified. In PE, someone had put itching powder in her gym clothes. During lunch, Jake Wilson deliberately bumped into her, sending her tray crashing to the floor. "Oops," Jake said, not bothering to hide his grin. "Hope you're not too clumsy to clean that up." Keisha knelt to gather the scattered food, while students stepped around her. A few offered to help, but she waved them off. She could handle Derek's games. What she couldn't handle was the growing audience that seemed to enjoy the show. The breaking point came during 8th period study hall. Keisha sat alone at a corner table working on calculus homework when Derek and his crew approached. The study hall monitor had stepped out, leaving 30 students unsupervised. "Hey everyone," Derek announced, his voice carrying across the room. "I've got something special to share." He pulled out his phone, and suddenly Keisha's voice filled the room through a small Bluetooth speaker. It was her English class discussion from the day before, but edited and manipulated. Her thoughtful comments about racial injustice had been spliced with audio clips to make it sound like she was saying inflammatory things about white people. The edited recording painted her as an angry, racist outsider who hated her new school and everyone in it. Students looked shocked, confused, some angry. "Guess we know how she really feels about us," Derek said, pocketing his phone with satisfaction. "Good thing we got to hear her true thoughts." Keisha sat frozen as whispers erupted around her. Some students looked suspicious, others disgusted. A few seemed to realize the audio was fake, but their voices were drowned out by those who believed it. "That's not what I said." Keisha's voice cut through the noise, but Derek talked over her. "Are you calling me a liar? Everyone just heard you. Everyone just heard you manipulate recordings to make me sound like something I'm not." Derek stepped closer to her table. "Why would I need to manipulate anything? We all heard what kind of person you really are." The study hall door opened, and Mrs. Chen, the monitor, returned. The room fell silent, students suddenly fascinated by their homework. "Is everything all right in here, Mrs.?" Chen asked, sensing the tension. "Perfect," Derek said with his politician's smile. "Just having a friendly discussion about current events?" When the bell rang, Keisha gathered her books with hands that barely trembled. Students filed out, some avoiding eye contact, others staring openly. The damage was done. By tomorrow, Derek's edited recording would be all over social media. As she walked toward her final class, she overheard fragments of conversation. "I can't believe she said that stuff. Seemed so quiet and nice." Derek was right about her. At her locker after school, Keisha found Marcus waiting for her. "That recording was fake," he said quietly. "I was in English class. I heard what you actually said. Doesn't matter now." Keisha pulled out her jacket. "Damage is done. You could fight it. Prove it was edited. Or I could fight the source." Marcus grabbed her arm. "Don't do anything stupid. Derek's expecting you to retaliate. He's probably got it all planned out. How to make you look like the aggressor, how to get you suspended or arrested." Keisha looked at Marcus's concerned face, then at the students walking past, some still whispering and pointing. Derek had been systematic in his campaign to isolate and humiliate her. Every move calculated to push her toward a reaction that would justify his cruelty. Maybe it's time to give him what he's expecting. She shrugged off Marcus's grip and headed for the exit. Behind her, Marcus called out, "Keisha, don't do this. It's not worth it." But some things were worth it. Her dignity was worth it. Her right to exist in this school without being terrorized was worth it. And sometimes, the only way to stop a bully was to show them that their target could bite back. Outside, Derek and his crew were horsing around in the parking lot, probably celebrating their successful character assassination. They looked so pleased with themselves, so confident in their power. Keisha dropped her backpack by the school entrance and walked toward them with purpose. It was time to have that conversation Derek kept talking about. But this time, it would be on her terms. Derek was still laughing about the recording when he saw Keisha approaching across the parking lot. His laughter died as he noticed her purposeful stride, the way she'd dropped her backpack like dead weight. Well, look who decided to come talk after all." Derek straightened, Jake and Tommy flanking him automatically. "Ready to apologize for being so unfriendly?" Keisha stopped 10 feet away, her voice calm and clear. "I'm done with your games, Derek. The fake recording, the harassment, all of it. This ends now." "Oh, it ends when I say it ends." Derek's confidence swelled with his audience. A few students had stopped to watch, sensing drama. "You think you can just walk into my school and disrespect me? Think again. Your school?" Keisha took a step closer. "Last I checked, this was a public institution funded by taxpayers, including my mother." Derek's face reddened. "Don't get smart with me. You're outnumbered and outclassed. Walk away while you still can. I tried walking away. You followed. I tried ignoring you. You escalated. I tried being reasonable. Another step closer. Now, we do this my way. Tommy cracked his knuckles. You sure you want to do this? 3 against 1 doesn't look good for you. Neither does picking on someone you thought couldn't fight back. Keisha's voice remained steady, but her stance shifted slightly. Weight balanced on the balls of her feet. Last chance, Derek.